Hey guys, James with TFBTV. Today on TFBTV, we're talking about suppressing your MP5, specifically suppressing your MP5-K PDW, which all of us have, right? We're also going to review the OSS RAD-9 while we're at it. I was absolutely thrilled when the MP5-K PDW came out last year, and in fact, I called it one of my top 5 guns of 2020, and I still stand by that. Actually, I think the MP5-K PDW might even be my favorite pistol caliber carbine right now. I liked it so much that I went SBR'd it, and I got the UMP folding stock for it that I love. Not only is the MP5-K PDW a masterwork of a machine, but it's also a useful tool. It's made on the exact same assembly line as all military law enforcement MP5s in Germany. And it's also the sexiest gun on the planet, perhaps. So the video today, kind of a weird one, suppressing the MP5, specifically the K or the K PDW. James, what possibly could you tell me about suppressing an MP5-K PDW? Don't you just simply screw a metal tube on to the end of it and leave it at that? Well, technically, yes, you could. But there are actually a few neat things that you need to know about the MP5, specifically about the K PDW, that I think you're going to find interesting. We're going to start with the basics, so you guys who are like our MP5 experts out there, sit tight, because the real hacks are going to be kind of towards the end of the video. All the information I obtained in this video about suppressing the MP5-K PDW was derived not only from H&K engineers, but from federal law enforcement officers who've actually used this firearm and other subject matter experts. I also have excerpts from the MP5 Operator's Manual and the H&K MP5 Armorer's Manual. So I did a lot of research to do this video because it's fun for me, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. We'll come right back to the MP5-K PDW after we talk about the OSS RAD-9. OSS RAD-9 just came out like a few days ago. It was March 15. It just came out. Fortunately, me and the other guys from TFB, we got our hands on an early release copy this past January at Gunfest, and we interviewed Jake with OSS about the RAD-9. This is their first centerfire handgun suppressor, and it's kind of a big deal to them. But instead of me going on about it, how about I just pipe in a synopsis of what Jake told us about the suppressor at Gunfest. And if you want more details, just go back and look up that video.
It's a hybrid of baffles and our flow-through system. So people that are familiar with our RAD-22 will see it looks somewhat similar. So you can see there's the coils on the outside to give you some flow-through and still have baffles worked in there.
Why is flow-through important to me?
It's a way to suppress your gun without increasing back pressure. So the way it works traditionally with our rifle stuff is there's more layers of these coils, a little bit bigger. So it takes high pressure gases and it runs them through a series of layers of coils to slow the gas down instead of just giving it a dead stop the way traditional designs work. And it lets all the excess pressure flow out the front of the silencer instead of backing up and going back down the bore line. So in a gas-operated rifle, it causes a lot of issues with increased bolt velocity, gas in your face, gun runs a lot dirtier. So it's modular, 2 pieces. So we have it, we can show you kind of assembled here and start from there. So we wanted it to be able to be configured in a lot of different ways, so it's tailored to work with however the user wants it to work. So I guess if you were to start with the front module off, cap goes on the K section, that's what we call it, and that's the K configuration of the 9mm. Base section is titanium. All the baffles are 17-4 stainless in both pieces, and the very end module to make it the long configuration is aluminum and the end cap. So if you're going to run it on an MP5, something like that, most users we found probably want the K configuration or the short configuration anyway, and that's where we've run it mostly in the auto. And it will do auto, full auto use in the full length configuration, but you can run it a little harder in the short configuration.
Oh, okay. Yeah, very interesting. As we'll touch on later in the video, I thought that the OSS RAD-9 was going to be perfect for the PDW, mainly because of the flow-through technology and the way that it interfaces with the roller delay blowback system used by the MP5. But again, we'll talk about that in just a moment. I also want you to know that towards the end of the video, we ran the OSS RAD-9 in its short configuration and its long configuration, and we ran each configuration with supersonic ammo and subsonic ammo so you guys out there could hear the difference. If you're lucky enough to have an MP5-K PDW or you're thinking about getting one, you're in for a treat because these guns are made to be suppressed. They run very well suppressed. We're going to talk about what makes them so good as suppressor hosts, and then we're going to go over a couple of pro gamer moves, some MP5 hacks specific to the PDW at the end of the video. But enough talking about what we're going to do. Let's do it. It's commonly accepted that the H&K's roller delayed blowback system is superior to a straight blowback system, not only for purposes of mitigating recoil and for overall function, but it's better as a suppressor host. That's because it delays the blowback of the action. So with a straight blowback gun like an Uzi or a 9mm AR, the bolt will start traveling backwards immediately after the round's fired, while in an MP5, the roller delay system will keep the bolt locked for a short delay to allow chamber pressures to fall before unlocking and cycling. Theoretically, that should force more gases down the muzzle and out the suppressor and not out of the action and not into your face. So that should make the action noise quieter, there should be less noise, less gas coming out of the action, easier to shoot the MP5 because they're not very gassy when you fire them with a suppressor, and they're going to send more powder and more noise down the tube side, which is what you want. So the H&K MP5 is thought to be quieter than your standard straight blowback 9mm carbine. And it's actually the roller delayed blowback system that kind of inspired me to do this video in tandem with the OSS RAD-9. Because you have allegedly more gases going down the muzzle, those gases need a place to go when they hit the suppressor. The claim to fame with the OSS RAD-9, as with a couple of other suppressors that are in the premium side of the suppressor market, is that they have flow-through technology. You can kind of see the holes in the end cap here, and you've got those flow baffles that we saw earlier in the video. Now those purportedly, again, I'm not claiming that I know this, but there is a scientific basis for this provided from the guys at OSS, but you should be able to move more gas out of your can because you're going to have those flow baffles and give the gases a place to escape outside of the bore line. Is that true? I don't know, but it sounds good and I wanted to give it a try with my MP5. Another thing that makes the H&K MP5 pretty much perfect for suppressing, you have two suppressor mounting options straight from the factory. Of course, you have the 1/2x28 direct thread, which is what we used here, and then you have something I've talked about quite a bit on my prior MP5 videos, and that is the tri-lug attachment system. It's these three lugs here, right behind the threads, that allow you, if you have a tri-lug adapter for your suppressor, to simply slide the suppressor over your muzzle, quarter twist, it's on. When you want to remove it, put a little bit of rearward pressure on that suppressor, quarter twist, and it's off. The 1/2x28 thread pitch for direct thread is much more common than the 1/2x36 used by a lot of Colts or left-hand thread used by many other German manufacturers. So you're going to be able to mount just about any 9mm can on the PDW between the tri-lug and the direct thread. Obviously, I prefer the tri-lug. The RAD-9 is so new, we don't even have a tri-lug adapter for it yet. But one thing that's really cool about the OSS RAD-9 is you're going to be able to use those relatively common Silencer Co. Octane mounts on here and get a tri-lug adapter if you want it. I don't know how much slow-mo I've played at this point in the video because I'm just recording the commentary now, but I might have a couple of people getting on to me in the comments about running this thing without a fixed barrel spacer. Again, this RAD-9 is pre-production, didn't have a fixed barrel spacer for it. What that is, by the way, guys, like with most centerfire cans, you have what's called a Nielsen device in the RAD-9, and that's something where if you shoot it with a pistol, because you've got that weight dangling off the end of the barrel, a Nielsen device gives you a little oomph, a little more oomph. It's like a spring that bounces backwards and it helps the gun cycle. Well, you don't need that on a fixed barrel gun. So usually you just put a spacer in there. You take the spring out, drop in a spacer, and that's what you're supposed to do. It's supposed to be better for the suppressor better for the gun, better for your shooting experience. However, if you do notice on OSS's, their teaser video, I don't know if they just didn't have any of the fixed barrel spacers yet at the time or whatever, but they didn't have one in their video either, so now I don't feel as bad. And fun little fact, if you check this excerpt here that I've copied from the MP5 operator's manual, you'll see that H&K says that the MP5 is actually more accurate with a suppressor attached than without, which is kind of a cool thing I didn't know. All right, guys, let's get into some master's level MP5 shit. We're talking about H&K's dirty lederhosen that I got straight from the engineering department at H&K. Did you know that you could adjust the dwell time of the H&K MP5 PDW to specifically tune it for use with a suppressor? A lot of you didn't know that. That's why you're watching that video. We're here to help each other out. This is some cool info that I got from H&K, and I'd seen it before. I'd seen it in the operator's manual. I'd seen it in the owner's manual, but it's a neat trick that I think a lot of people don't know about, and it's really easy to do. So I wanted to share it with you. That is by changing the locking piece of your MP5-K PDW. And I mean MP5-K PDW, please don't do this if you have a standard SP5 or a standard MP5. So without getting too much into the science or the math of it, because I'm dumb, there's something called the locking piece. It's a component contained in the bolt carrier group. Very easy to take out whenever you're just field stripping it or cleaning it after the range. The shoulders of the locking piece come in different angles. The greater the angle in degrees, the easier and faster the action opens up. While I've seen locking pieces for the MP5 in the range of 70 degrees to 120 degrees, the 100 or 110 degree locking pieces are suitable for most general purposes and what you see on most standard MP5s or SP5s. So again, if you have an SP5, don't mess with your locking piece. If you have an SP5K and you're not shooting it suppressed, don't mess with your locking piece. But if you're going to shoot it with a can on it, you'd like to hear more. Interestingly, both the Armorer's Manual and the Operator's Manual, not to mention my conversation with H&K's engineers, they recommend that you switch to the 80-degree locking piece, which slows down the unlocking of the action. The 80-degree piece is like changing to an H buffer weight in your AR-15. It'll be smoother cycling with shorter barrels and suppressors. Now, while the 80-degree piece is optimized for suppressed fire, in conversations I've had with H&K's engineers and with their customer service, they've never seen anyone with a reliability issue relating to the 80-degree locking piece. In other words, what you guys are thinking to yourselves is, okay, well, that's kind of cool. I can change to the 80-degree locking piece, but how's that going to affect my unsuppressed reliability? And according to H&K's customer service, they haven't really seen an issue if you do switch to the 80-degree piece and you're firing unsuppressed. It shouldn't be a problem as long as you're doing that in the KPDW only. There's another kind of interesting hack that you might want to know about. The H&K MP5 is, of course, one of the most durable and reliable submachine guns on the planet. In fact, there's one at NASA, believe it or not, where they have these, the security there has MP5s. They have a training MP5 that has over 500,000 rounds through it, trouble-free. All it needs is a little bit of maintenance, and one of the maintenance items in the MP5 is the extractor spring. That isn't to say that it needs to be changed out any more frequently than an extractor spring on any other gun. If anything, it's probably less frequently, but that is probably the one component you're going to have to change if you go to very high round counts. H&K doesn't even publish a recommendation in terms of like a round count recommendation for when you need to change the extractor spring on this gun. It's so dependent on so many different factors, including temperature, whether you're firing suppressed or unsuppressed, hotter ammo, using 147 grain versus 115 grain, so on and so forth. So a lot of people like to have a little bit more durable extractor springs if they're going to be shooting a lot of full auto or suppressed fire. Fortunately, there's another factory hack, kind of like the one we just talked about, that you can do for your extractor spring and your MP5. And that is switching to what they call the gray extractor spring. At present, your MP5 most likely is going to have a copper extractor spring. According to the MP5 Armorer's Manual, the gray extractor spring is a little bit stronger and a little bit more durable than the copper spring. Originally, all HK roller delayed blowback guns, including the MP5, came with a gray extractor spring, but H&K eventually swapped to the copper spring because Although it's less durable, it eliminated concerns about the extractor failing to lock over the cartridge rim, which was an issue, but only in the 10mm variants using the gray extractor spring, at least according to the manual. Presently, H&K isn't for or against you changing your extractor spring. They don't recommend it, but it's something that they acknowledge is done, and it is something that people do if they want to get more life out of their extractor springs. But really that raises the question, whoever is complaining about the life of their extractor springs in their MP5. But I guess you guys out there who are going to have high round count guns with a lot of full auto fire or suppressed fire, you might be interested to know this little hack. One other thing that I like about the SP5-K PDW over the standard SP5 is the fact that you have this 5.5-inch barrel, which makes it better for suppressing. Kind of an odd statement to make, but think about it this way. With all 147 grain rounds, 9mm, like the heaviest rounds, they're going to be subsonic through the SP5-K PDW, and you might even have some intermediate weight rounds like 124 grain-ish, which are not going to go supersonic through this 5.5-inch barrel simply because they don't have enough time to accelerate, while I would say probably all 124 grain rounds are going to be able to accelerate through the MP5's 9-inch barrel to the point where they go supersonic, and then you have a supersonic crack, which you're going to hear in a second. That's basically the round coming out of the muzzle, coming out of the suppressor, and moving at a supersonic speed, making a crack that's actually really freaking loud. That's obviously a bad thing if you're shooting a suppressed gun, so that's another reason why the SP5-K PDW is a little bit better suited for suppression. Another thing about it is you've got a smaller overall length. As you can see here, if you're using like a K suppressor here, like the O.S.S RAD-9 in its short configuration, it's actually going to be roughly the same size as a full-size SP5, but you're going to have a suppressor on there as well. So it being more compact lends itself to better suppression, and it makes it a lot easier to handle if you have a suppressor on at the end of it. So I happen to think the SP5-K PDW is ideal for suppressing. Now to wrap up this video, I want you guys to hear the difference between the SP5-K PDW with the short suppressor, the long suppressor, supersonic, and subsonic rounds. You're going to see quite a difference. MP5K, O.S.S RAD-9K, very sexual with a K. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna shoot K config first on the K with 150 grain subsonic Federal Syntech, which is my favorite. You guys know it's my favorite RAND JMO. 150 grain is going to be subsonic, going to sound great in the suppressor. Then we're going to try it just for fun with supersonic, see if there's any real difference. Then we're going to do the full baffle stack with the 150 grain Federal Syntech 9, and then we'll try that again with some supersonic 115 grain, see what the difference is. Let's go ahead and give it a whip. As promised, 150 grain subsonic with the K config. All right, not bad. All right, you guys tell me how that sounded. We've got our high fidelity mic on there. I mean, how did it sound to you?
Dude, it was actually really quiet. Of course, I had these plugs in, but it's like I couldn't even hardly hear it.
Yeah. All right, got 10 rounds of cheap Magtech or CBC Brazilian 115 grain Brazilian ammo for the Brazilian wax I got yesterday. Supersonic K config. So obviously much louder. Now on this side of the gun, really not that bad to be honest with you, but you definitely hear that sonic crack. And I mean, it really raises the question, if you're going to get a 9mm can, why you would shoot 115 grain or 124 grain. If you stick with like 147 grain, 150 grain, or even 158 grain, which actually exists in 9mm, it's going to be a lot quieter. After you shoot it and you get a little carbon buildup, you might need a wrench to unscrew it. But we actually did just give it a little elbow grease And you see you unscrew the end cap and pop the rest of the baffle stack on there. Screw that on. Then end cap goes on the new stack. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. 150 grain, full stack OSS RAD-9. God, now that was really quiet. Doesn't look as cool with a K. Doesn't look as cool when you have the short stack, but damn, unsurprisingly, much quieter. I mean, that was pretty. Ryan, what'd you think of that?
It was really quiet.
Ryan said it was really quiet. What did you guys think? 115 grain, supersonic, full stack. One thing I want to mention, and okay, real quick, hypothesis proven, loud as piss. I'm getting no blowback here, no gas blowback. O.S.S, their claim to fame is like their flow-through technology. You got these holes that you can see in the end cap. I don't know. I've never really had like an issue with blowback or like a really gassy MP5. I'm sure some people out there, just depending on the suppressor you use, depending on the ammo you use, might have a different story. I mean, for example, I think with the MPX, with the SIG MPX, I traditionally don't have blowback issues with the suppressors I use, but I've seen viewers out there who have said that it's awful. But with that caveat out of the way, there's nothing. Like there's no blowback whatsoever. This is actually a really easy suppressor to shoot. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. You know I love the H&K SP5. Stay strong out there, boys. This SP5-K PDW is going to be easier to get in the future. Just be patient, don't bow into scalpers, and stay tuned to TFBTV. Thanks a ton for watching. Take care.